Hello and welcome back, guys. So if you did the exercises in the last video, you should be very familiar with numbers, booleans, and strings. You should know how they work. Uh, you should have, you know, you must have used them on console, so you know how to use the console now. Now, moving on, in this video, we are going to discuss a new part, a very important one actually, of JavaScript. It's called variables. So let's talk about variables. So far, you know how to write, for example, in a strings, you know, you can use a strings to write, but for example, if I had to write a string, let's say that said this pizza is spicy, plus I want an exclamation mark. So it gives us this pizza is spicy. But if I wanted to write this pizza is spicy in 4 or 5 places, I'll have to type it again and again and again and again, and that's not very efficient. So, because coding is supposed to make things faster. But if you keep repeating yourself, and right now this is just, one simple line. Imagine these were like hundreds and thousands of lines of code, and you needed them in more than one place. You're not going to write the whole code over and over and over again. That's like really tedious. So that's where variables come in. Variables hold the values that are assigned to them, and a variable is represented by var. Just that's it. So we can do, for example, we can do variable Sammy equals this pizza is spicy plus the exclamation mark. Now over here it will say undefined, but if you write Sammy, this pizza is spicy. Sammy, actually the console is smart enough to remember it, so Sammy, enter it. This pizza is spicy. So what we did right now is we just stored that piece of string in the variable Sammy. Now, like I said, this is a very simple line, but if you imagine this being a 100-line code, then you can just access it by using Sammy. Now remember that variables, just like everything else in JavaScript, have some rules. So the first rule is variables can't start with a number. So you cannot do, for example, variable 5 equals to 5. This will give you an error. But if you do variable 5 equals to 5, well, now it's stored, and then when you do 5, it will give you the value. So this is one of the rules that you'll just have to remember, that variables can't start with numbers. Variables can start with letters, and they can end with a number. And variables can't start with something called symbol, but we will get into it later. So right now all you need to remember is that you cannot start a variable with a number, but you can end it with a number. But they need to start with a letter. Now let's talk about the concept of something called camel case. Like, for example, if you wanted a variable called last name, it's two words. It's not, last and then name is a separate word. So the way you will do it is that you will not write last name. No, this is wrong. So what you will do is you'll make the N capital. Then you'll do variable last name equals to John. So when you do last name, you'll have John. But basically, this is how you do it in JavaScript. You use camel case. So now that you guys understand the reason we need variables and the reason they're so important, because we need to store values, we need to store the information we get, like login info, the passwords and stuff. Let me demonstrate that to you by using this cool trick. For example, prompt. Oh, it's not typing. Okay, prompt. And then we need these brackets. See, prompt. It opens up this thing. You can write whatever you want. When you say OK, it gives this value, and now this value is stored in prompt. So you can do something like you can do prompt insert password, semicolon. Okay, then you can say your password is the great. Now this password is stored. So once this password is stored, not over here, this is just an example, but in big companies, once your password is stored on big websites, every time you come back again over there and you type in your username and password, they just, match that information with the backend and see if there is a user with this username and what is their password. And if it matches, they grant you access. And as you can see, after we add that value over there in the password, it's stored as a string. But variables are very important. That's the point. By the way, there is this thing, as you can see, it's stored in the form of a string. So what if, the code was something like variable key is equals to prompt enter key value, right? And then you entered the key value as 5. Now it's undefined, but it's stored in the variable key. So when you do key, you can see that it's actually the number 5, but it's stored as a string. So how can you change this string to a number? Well, it's very simple. All you need to do is just type number key enter. And you see the color has changed to blue. Like I told you, blue represents that now it's a number, it's no longer a string. So this is all you need to do. You just put the name of the variable and you type number, and then it will change the value into a number. Now, before we jump into writing our very first JavaScript program, let me show you something else that is almost like a prompt called alert. And the alert will say, hello world, semicolon, hello world. So in an alert, you cannot just like, put in information. It's just a pop-up that displays the message that you have, put it in over here. Now that you know all the things that I've taught you so far, we're gonna write our very first JavaScript program. Let me just clear all of this. So now we're gonna write our very first JavaScript program using prompt, alert, and the variables. So we're gonna go with variable user name is equal to prompt enter username. Then I'm going to press shift and enter so that it doesn't, trigger the code. I'm going to say variable password. Password is one word, so you don't need to use the camel case. And it will be prompt enter password. And and then again shift plus enter, and then we're gonna do an alert that's gonna be welcome space plus the username that we will enter up there. Okay, now let's see what happens. Enter. So enter username, I'm gonna say, let's say John. So password, we're gonna say is great. See, welcome John. Congratulations, if you were coding along with me, you just wrote your very first JavaScript program. So now you can see that variables can hold values. And by the way, the reason I keep adding semicolon at the end of all these codes is because semicolon in JavaScript is kind of like, you know how we put period or full stop at the end of sentences? It shows that it's the end of the expression. So now you know that variable can store values, and variable can store any kind of value, whether it be like a number or a boolean or a string. Before we jump into more fun stuff to do with the variables, I'm gonna end this video over here so you can go back to the console and play around with this thing a little bit. This is the first sample simple mini program that we have written using JavaScript. Try to play around with this, assign variables, try to create maybe few mini programs with this, and then once you feel comfortable with all you have learned up until here, move on to my next video and we will get into some more fun stuff, and I'll give you some exercises in the coming video. Yep, so see you guys there.